Wise words from U.S. General George S. Patton. He said, "I want you to remember that no one ever won a war by dying for his country. He won it by making the other poor dumb guy die for his country." And I think he may be right. But how do you apply that in war? Well, one thing, you deploy the best war tricks up your sleeve to fool your enemy. Misdirection is key. But before we talk about the best wartime game plan that has ever been pulled off, hi, and welcome to Slyworks. We welcome you to another video of fun facts that you will hopefully enjoy. Before we get to the fun part, please don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on that post notification icon to not miss any amazing videos. Let's get started. First on our list is when Persians used cats to defeat the Egyptians. Yes, our furry friends took part in conquering the Egyptians at the Battle of Pelusium during 520 BC. As known, the Egyptians had great reverence for life in all its forms. They believed that everything that God gifted with life must be respected and worshipped. Even when animals were eaten, thanks were given for the sacrifice, pets were well cared for, and wildlife and nature was respected. And this is what the Persians used to get an advantage on them. The battle was won through a very unusual strategy on Cambyses II's part. They used animals as hostages, in particular, cats. They painted cats onto their shields and also brought cats to the battlefield. There is no way that the Egyptians would disrespect these adorable animals because at the time, it was a crime punishable by death. The Egyptians had to retreat, which ultimately led to their downfall. Do you think the Persians pulled the wisest trick ever used on a battlefield? Wait till you hear about the last one on this list. Our next war deception involves the Allies using a magician to defeat Hitler's #1 man. Adolf Hitler was one of the most powerful and notorious dictators of the 20th century. He is known as the leader of the Germans' Nazi Party. But even the most powerful dictator can be outwitted with the right plan. The history of World War II is brimming with legends of incredible heroism, death-defying bravery, and sometimes stories that are just too ridiculous to be true. This includes the story of a British magician, his majestic name, Jasper Maskelyne. Whether or not the illusionist was the real deal, or just smoke and mirrors, the story of his contributions to the Allied war effort is too incredible to ignore. For whatever reason, the Allies thought that they could actually benefit from having a magic man amongst their ranks, and promoted him to major. But his privilege didn't end there. He was also allowed to assemble his own team of artists, tricksters, engineers, and illusionists to help him pull off his stunt. They were called the A-Force. Their first stunt was creating a fake version of the German battleship Admiral Graf Spee and floating it down the river Thames. The next thing that Maskelyne was planning on was to hide the Suez Canal, as they were protecting it from German bombers. The magic gang supposedly built a system of rotating searchlights and mirrors that created beams of light that were nearly 10 miles across, washing whatever came into their path with blinding white light. This enormous stunt was supposedly pulled off, despite the limited resources at that time. Who says girls can't rule on a battlefield? The next one on the list is a real game changer. Have you heard about the Night Witches? Well, they were bomber pilots who ran thousands of daring bombing raids against German soldiers. In 1942, the regiment began filling out with young women ranging in age from 17 to 26. They began with an initial bombing run on June 8, 1942. They would decimate Nazi forces with overnight bombing runs all the way until the end of the war. The troop had as many as 40 two-person crews, flying multiple bombing runs as soon as the sky darkened. taking part in as many as 18 in a single night. The light planes could only carry 6 bombs at a time, so as soon as one run was complete, the pilots would be rearmed and sent back out for another strike. Since they were working at night, rumors began to spread that the women were given pills to give them cat-like vision, hence why they were referred to as night witches. The night witches didn't have great planes or superior bombs, or even very much support for their unit, but they nonetheless became one of the most remarkable fighting forces of World War II. No sorcery needed. Who would have thought that a mere potato could help the Americans in their struggle against the Japanese army in World War II? In 1943, a U.S. Navy destroyer engaged a Japanese submarine during the Solomon Islands campaign. On the evening of April 4, 1943, the destroyer Squadron 21, Des Ron 21, a fleet of destroyers which included the O'Bannon, had shelled Japanese bases in the New Georgia area. Early the following morning, they were returning to base at Noumea, New Caledonia, when the O'Bannon's radars picked up a large Japanese submarine. And this is where the real war started to be waged. The Americans came empty-handed, and the Japanese forces continued to lay siege to them. As the Japanese ran toward their deck guns, the Americans went to their last resort, running to their storage bins, of all things. No guns or grenades, only potatoes. But in the right hands, potatoes can be a mighty weapon. In this desperate situation, the Americans threw as many potatoes as they could at the Japanese below, hoping to keep them away from their deck gun, but probably suspecting it was a useless gesture. Their suspicions were wrong. The Japanese panicked at the rain of root vegetables. The brave among them picked the potatoes up and threw them overboard. Others threw them back at the Americans, who threw them back at the Japanese. You see, the Japanese thought the potatoes were hand grenades. The O'Bannon, meanwhile, used the potato war to distance itself from the sub. It got far enough away to use its deck guns, taking out the Row 34's conning tower. The sub divided, so the destroyer surged forward to where it had been, passing overhead and dropping depth charges that destroyed the Japanese vessel. Well, the next time we eat fries, we'll be sure to be thinking about this one. And for the grandest stunt we have on this list, the Ghost Army of World War II. Don't hide behind your computer chair. This is not about literal ghosts, but ghosts that could actually win an Oscar because of their brilliance. In 1944, thousands of Allied troops stormed the beaches of Normandy during World War II. Among the units that fanned out through France and Germany were the 23rd Headquarters Special Troops, or the so-called Ghost Army. Its existence was top secret, and its men used trickery and artistry to fool the enemy. The Ghost Army soldiers were bright and young artists, designers, radio engineers, and more. They joined the army and were handpicked to engage in novel kind of psychological warfare. Costumes, camouflage, impersonation, props, fake radio transmissions, visual and sound effects were their weapons, used ingeniously to fool the enemy. Another deception was supplied by the unit's combat engineer company, which would don the insignias of other military units to confuse the Germans or to mislead potential spies in nearby towns. And every minute the Nazis were busy chasing shadows, they weren't engaging the real Allied combat divisions. This secret operation wasn't revealed until 40 years later. This was all finally revealed by one of the soldiers of the Ghost Army, Jack McGlynn. What a story he was hanging on to for all those years. There you have it, guys. The most creative and mind-blowing stunts and mind games during war. Who do you think defeated their enemy with the most panache? Share your thoughts with us in the comment section down below. Like this video and subscribe to our channel for more Slyworks videos. See you next time!